So you need a vision that's like, wow, I want to change the world. I want to do something that is far and beyond my current circumstances.
All right, welcome to the Influence to Impact podcast itself. Today's leader is the Asia-Pacific digital influencer and is described as a unicorn because he's a jack of many trades, but a master of a ton of them as well. And he's one of the most respected copywriters and marketers in the world itself. In fact, most of the people around my circles and even my clients will always mention him when it comes to copywriting. I was like, oh man, who's this Kenneth guy? I finally got him on this show itself. And he isn't just a marketer with like millions of dollars as results himself. He has won many awards from Ad Fairs, London International, and tons of others. But what's so genius about this guest itself is that he's not a person that's just generated millions of dollars in one industry, but industries from personal development all the way to finance and all the way to startups in Silicon Valley itself. So introducing today's guest itself, Kenneth Yu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Awesome. Okay, let's jump into the first question itself. Is what ignited your spark in really copywriting itself? Because you have been on this journey of copywriting for many years or even decades itself. But what ignited your spark in going like, oh, I find joy in writing words and let me continue writing words itself?
Yeah, I like money. So that's the first thing. Like I think I had a lot of artistic inclinations growing up. So basically, even in my university, I was actually doing film studies. So I actually studied film for my degree. I studied Japanese anime. I actually did Japanese anime for my thesis. So I was very much inclined into that part of the world. I was a musician and everything. But there was another part of me that was like capitalist in nature. So not only was I, an artistic person who wants to die for their art, I actually wanted to make a lot of money. And I realized that copywriting is a marriage of those two things. And I did a copywriting course in uni itself. I didn't find it all that great, but at least it gave me an introduction. It didn't serve me at all once I actually entered copywriting when I was in Ogilvy, which is another story. But so I just wanted to earn some money that involves a little bit of my talents and my giftings. Don't go into like say a bank or accounting or one of these things. And I didn't want to be a journalist either because journalists are poor. So that's when I actually entered Ogilvy. And when I actually entered Ogilvy, the interesting thing was I was paid double from all my peers already. So even in my corporate journey, I've been getting double to triple what my peers have been making, even in the corporate sector. And that was before I branched out my own to do my own thing. Yeah.
It's very interesting that you're able to marry like you like what you say, you're very creative, artistic side of you, and then marry it together with words itself. Now, what would you say is like the reason behind why you thought of like marrying the whole creativity and like artistic side along with words specifically itself?
I think a lot of it is knowing it's possible. Because if I didn't take the copywriting course, or I didn't actually enter Ogilvy, and if I didn't actually enter Mind Valley with direct response copywriting, because I didn't actually do direct response copywriting till later on. I did what we call Mad Men style, Madison Avenue style. So you're doing the TV scripts, you're doing the billboards, the glamorous sort of things. But then when I was in advertising, and this is above the line advertising in my Ogilvy days, I found that the creatives were very well paid. They were making 5-6 times what, when you win your awards, you make 5-6 times more than what average people will make. So all these artistic people were actually making money, and so a lot of it lies in the exposure that it is indeed possible.
Would you say somewhere along the line you kind of got very good at identifying and spotting out money opportunities where you're able to profit from? Because based on your ventures throughout, especially with your different industries, you're very good at spotting out things that will blow up and things that will profit itself. And how did you like learn that skill? Is it learned, or was it something that over the years you gain some insight from someone, you was inspired, or how did it come about?
Actually, it's very astute you observed that, because it's true. I know how to spot opportunities. I know how to create products around those opportunities. I know how to sell those opportunities. It's not just in copywriting, we create businesses. Copywriting is my foot in the door, as it were. So what started out in uni was I was a trend spotter for a fashion magazine in Paris. And so, and music critic as well. So I was music arts, like I was a critic for a whole bunch of different magazines. So, and as a critic, as ever's below the surface, what is underground, and then what will hopefully explode. And so it started off as an interest because it's cool. I mean, going to all these weird places. I mean, it fits my inclination. It's cool. It's different. And you actually make something from it. People pay you to actually do that, believe it or not. And I think I transferred that initial interest into a skill, because everything is a skill. You do it after a while, then you get a bit of mastery, and I transfer it to the business world. And the business world operates by actually very similar rules. You just have to study, just as when I was doing the fashion type of thing, when I actually, I knew my stuff. Like I had to go underground, I had to do my research. The same goes now. Now it's just finding good curators of research and just studying the heck out of them.
And so you talk about
abreast of what's on the ground.
Okay, and so you talk about studying the markets itself, studying about what curators and creators are actually doing in the market itself. Now, let's say if you were to enter an industry that you don't know now, which I think you know a lot of industries, but let's say you do enter in this industry that you're not too sure of. I mean, in copywriting, they always say research is like the number one big thing, right? But for you, how do you actually identify that opportunity to go in? Because researching and creating copy itself is different from identifying what's the opportunity to nail down on and go in. I'm not talking about like unique mechanism and brief, but I'm talking about like identifying that big idea and that opportunity to enter in the first place.
Opportunities lie again in keeping your head on the ground, as it were, keeping your ears on the ground. And it's because it's actually not very hard to determine what's the sentiment of the world today. Like people are angry. Generally, people are angry. Like where got people happy, right? Like basically, it's just that. And then the key thing is the question I always ask is, how do you give people what they want in a way they don't expect? So my frame of mind is basically what people want has been the same for all across eternity, pretty much, because people want to eat, they want to sleep, they want to make love, they want to be clothed, they want companionship. Doesn't change. But what changes is the novelty of how these mechanisms are delivered. So you're not gonna wear caveman clothing. Like it fulfills the need of the need to be clothed, but now you wear your latest Gucci or Off-White or whatever it is.
Shirts.
Yeah, Supreme. I have a whole bunch of Off-Whites and Supremes just over there actually. So I like the streetwear type of thing. So, but that's the novelty. That is a delivery mechanism that's unexpected. And really, what I look out for is what is the unexpected mechanisms in all the different trends and all the different industries, and actually say, okay, does it fulfill the primal needs of the customer?
But it's very interesting that you go down back to the very basics, right? We always talk about the needs of our clients and always being on the ground. I think the whole concept for me is being customer obsessed, because once you place your clients first, then everything all comes in and everything all patches pretty well itself. So let's go back down to that line where you went to Ogilvy, and then you also, after that, you went to join Mind Valley yourself as a chief of marketing. Like, what do you do on like a daily or weekly basis that got you to become so good at marketing and copywriting? Because once again, you had a background in terms of like arts, music. People might be thinking like, how in the world did this guy go from arts, music, from a copywriting course, and then like all the way to becoming one of the most well-decorated copywriters and marketers in the world?
I think a lot of it is also luck. So I think it's a combination of luck, skills, and likability. So I'll go into skills because that's the most straightforward. You practice every day, you become good at something. But there are a lot of people that are, probably as good as me, I think. And then there's the function of being likable, meaning don't be an asshole in the office. Even if you play politics, play properly lah. Don't don't backstab your way to the top. Don't be a toxic asshole. I think that's the key. Because once you're not toxic, people open doors for you. So and people open doors for you because, hey, Kenneth, you have a good vibe. You don't seem like you're going to backstab me. You don't seem like you're untrustworthy. Therefore, okay, I'll give you this opportunity. And when all these opportunities come, one or two will actually hit a jackpot, and that's where luck comes in. But luck is a function of the odds. So, and you only can play the odds if you play them. That means you have enough tries. Maybe you have a 10% odds and everything. You still need that 10 tries to get that one win, right? So I think that's really how I play the game. I mean, mastery is just a function of practice. Nothing day in and day out. The reason I'm good at what I do, I'm turning 40 this year, so it's 15 years in the industry. I focus in the right direction. That means I wasn't distracted. So you just focus, and then after a while, you transcend mechanics, because you always start with mechanics first, and then you go into almost like the instinctual side of it. Like instinct is something you pick up after you know mechanics. So in a sense, you need to know the rules of the game in order to know how to break the rules of the game. So that is what that's
interesting that you talk about knowing the rules of the game and then breaking the rules of the game, because I think most people would know the rules of the game and then try to bend through the rules of the game, but you talk about breaking through the rules of the game. So like in terms of your whole, I'll say in terms of whole journey itself, it seems like you're breaking a ton of rules and a ton of things that people would say like, oh, what I should do is focus on a niche and then just sell the heck out of the niche and become so good in the niche itself. And then what I decided to do was to go into different industries, gain all the different knowledges and start applying on different industries itself. Now, going back to that whole breaking the rule thing, right? And also talk about likability. Now, if you were to look at yourself in a third party perspective, right, what would be the top 3 reasons why people would want to work with you? Would it be part of being likable? Would it be part of breaking the rules itself? What would it be?
I think with 3 things. I think one is likability. You want to work with people you like. Very simple, fundamental reason. Second is professionalism. And what I mean by that is, if I say there's a deadline, I mean, sometimes I don't meet that deadline because sometimes, of circumstances, sometimes you need an idea to come. I'll try to meet the deadline as close to the date as possible. And if I don't meet it, I will actually tell them. But generally, I meet my deadlines now, actually, because I give myself the time. So I don't promise a very tight deadline. I say, okay, this is the deadline. This is my deliverables. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how I add value to you. And thirdly, is obviously the skill level. So you need to have, skill, credentials, track record. Those are things that that are not shortcuts. And yeah, so when you have these 3 things, people will work with you.
Now, let's go back to that whole point of breaking the rules, right? What questions do you go through, like in your mind, right? Whenever you talk about like, hey, once we know what's the rules, we know what's like the background, like we know what's the context of this whole industry itself. What's the question that goes through your mind in terms of, okay, let's see if you can break the rules and do something that the market hasn't done? I mean, other than the question that you said just now, which I think is a very great question of asking yourself, like, what is something that we can do that people don't expect itself? Now, what other questions do you ask yourself in order to break the rules, but still know that even when you break the rules, you still get the result? Because I think the fear that most people have, even I probably have as well sometimes, is if I break the rule, would I be rewarded for that? Would I get what I want out from it?
I think breaking the rules is actually not so much breaking the rules. It's transposing different rules from different industries into your industry and thus creating disruption. And what I mean by that is innovation is taking something that is from a different industry, different field, different niche, and transferring it to your industry. And obviously there will be tension and sometimes things break down, but sometimes there is this breakthrough that actually happens. Like for instance, even in the area of direct response, it started off as like sales letters, and then sales letters started not doing well. And what happened was people saying, "Oh, let's take something from another industry," which is still a little bit related, which was the catalog industry and the magazine industry, and let's repackage direct response as a megalog or as a book, almost a bookalog they call it. And so it's basically sales letters but written in book form or magazine form, and that suddenly your response rates went up, by a ton. It just went up like crazy. And then after that, when things started to start slowing down again in the online space, suddenly you put a sales letter online and it started working, and then somebody started doing the video sales letters, and suddenly you get results that you never gotten before. Why? Because they took something from another industry, they transpose it to your current industry, and then something changes from there. And my approach is I am in a whole bunch of different industries at any given time. I actually don't study marketing. I don't see the point, because what was surprising, because I've been one of the pioneers of sales funnels. Like 13 years ago, we were one of the first few in my valley to do it. And what was really shocking to me is how 13 years later, nothing has changed. Like the fundamentals have not changed. Yeah, right. Like you don't have. I mean, you have social media, all those things. You don't have then. I mean, it wasn't Facebook then, and Facebook ads and all those things. But fundamentally, it's just building a list and sending offers to your list. Like it's still the same.
It's the same.
It's still the same game. It's still the same game. So for me, I mean, of course, I study things like the tactical stuff, because it's good to keep abreast. But generally, I just study everything else. I study geopolitics. I study finance. I study science. I study even pop culture. Why? Is because then the subconscious neurological linking happens, and then new ideas form, and the new ideas becomes my competitive advantage in the marketing.
That's very interesting. Now, I think because a lot of people, I think probably one comparison, or I'll say one person that you remind me of is also like Jay Abraham, who has like gotten a ton of experience in different industries.
And thank you.
No, but you remind
not
of
worthy, but yeah, thank you.
No, but you really remind me of him, like, because I've attended things from him as well. And then like the way that you're saying it is very similar to what he's saying about going and testing on different industries and understanding these different industries, so that they're able to bring across these relatable ideas and applicable ideas over to other industries itself. I think that's something that you've been reiterating again. And that's why you're always, in a way, all over the place, but you still thriving while you're all over the place itself. I think that's a huge skill that people will want to have and need to have as well. So going on and thinking about all these ideas that you're pulling off from different industries itself, that's probably the reason why you are able to create creative ideas, things that able to transcend the industry, and people be like, oh shit, something new itself, right? And you've been able to mastermind like a few movements itself, especially Mind Valley itself. Like, let's say we're about to start a movement from scratch, right? What are the key elements that are needed in order for one to even start that movement itself?
I think when it comes to movements, I will go into the most current one, because WYODC, which is
your own movement.
My movement. So basically, yeah, of which probably a lot of your friends are part of it. So anyone who buys my products, invests in my products, ends up being part of WYODC, which says, write your own damn check. So don't depend on the government, don't depend on outside circumstances, write your own damn check. So that's what WYODC stands for. And I started by accident, but if you reverse engineer what a movement needs, first, a movement needs a vision that's far bigger than themselves. So it's a vision that's far bigger than the members. It's also a vision that's far bigger than the founder. So you need a vision that's like, wow, I want to change the world. I want to do something that is far and beyond my current circumstances. And you need a figurehead as well. So you need someone who is like almost like have some sort of level of charisma, I think. Like I have a level of charisma that people want to hear from me. And then you need to set a culture as well. So basically, you can't let the people set a culture. I mean, you can, but people need to respond to the culture that you're setting. So what's interesting in, let's say, the Holy Grail side of it, because I have a few products. So I have the Holy Grail students. What's really interesting about the students is because I've been so generous with the Holy Grail copywriting side, I actually give all my secrets. They started like almost like crowdsourcing the different, like they're almost like a wiki now. So basically I have all these people like taking my principles, they're improving upon it, they're improving the templates, they're even peer reviewing one another. So it's almost like there is this organic grassroots thing that's going on. But it starts first from the top and then people respond. So if there's no culture, then people do whatever they want. But because you set the culture, my culture is culture of generosity, my culture is culture of no BS, my culture is culture of integrity or whatever the cultures are, then that flows down. And then, but the more a movement grows, the less valuable it actually becomes. Because the core is always very, what they call it, the core is always very passionate. And then you have everybody that just sort of just ride the bandwagon that comes in. So we call it a reverse network effect. So after a while, there will be a reverse network effect.
Because
I mean, you can circumvent that with, it becomes diluted, yeah. So you can try to circumvent that. Like basically, you can mitigate as much of it. You can't avoid it, you can mitigate it. But the key is having that vision that's so big, and then everybody wanting to rally around that vision.
Now, it's very interesting you refer to culture, which I think is like one of the hardest things to create. Like, I think even governments themselves are also constantly creating a culture in terms of like nationalism and things like that, right? I think culture is something that we always in our mind, we think that, okay, let's say we talk about just like I say generosity, abundance, right? So we say like, okay, let's make it a community where everyone share and everything. But then whatever that comes up, like even though we think of it in our head, and then we keep on constantly saying it, or whether is it we true by acting it itself, some people just, some communities just don't act on, some communities just don't catch on. And what would you say are like the main reasons why, even though we say it, we act it, we show people that, hey, you know, I'm sharing and constantly sharing again, but people don't pick up that culture itself?
I think culture building is very hard. It needs consistency. Because same in a marriage, that's why you go on date nights, right? If you don't just get married and then not go on a date for 20 years, you'll be divorced, right? So community is it's a function of relationship. Relationship is a function of repetition. So the more people relate, meet up, and everything, of course, that you get conflicts and everything, but the more there's a frequency of interaction, the more a community builds.
Interesting that you talk about frequency itself, because I like now that you talk about frequency itself, then I think about like movements that movements that are still in the world itself, maybe in terms of like, in terms of marketing, in terms of the marketing world, like with the whole ClickFunnels movements and things like that. You can see the reason why now they are in a way a little bit dying, sort of that sense, because you talk about that whole dilution as well. I talk about the frequency because people are not able to meet each other when it comes to COVID. Everyone's just online. There's a lack of connection itself. I mean, sure, we can connect on social media, but there isn't really a sense of physical togetherness and things like that. So then I understand why it makes a lot of sense now that you talk about the whole frequency thing and why culture starts to become diluted and starts to die down itself. Then the question is like, when it comes to setting out the whole culture and creating that frequency, now let's say if one leader itself, like what I say, is charismatic, has a big vision itself, and you just keep creating again and again with consistent effort. Now, I've seen people before, I'm not gonna name names, but I've seen people before that did that whole frequency thing, try to create something big. But at the end of the day, it didn't really fall through because people still look at it and go like, is this something that I really want to join, or is this something that I'm just gonna go like, okay, this is cool. Right? What would you say is like the factor that makes people want to join and looking at it as, oh, that's cool, but I don't want to want it, and the difference of that's cool and I want it? Yeah.
I think the key is actually who is your second in command. basically who is the first follower. So because and it's very interesting, it's actually a concept from Darius in one of his TED Talks. So I'm not sure if you know Derek. So Darius from CD Baby.
Yeah.
I actually had breakfast with him in Lithuania.
Wow.
So
his book is amazing though. His book.
Yeah, it's amazing, and too bad I didn't get to spend more time with him. So, but I had breakfast with him in Lithuania. It was quite cool to have breakfast with Derek. And what he said was, yeah, it's about the first follower. It's not just about the leader, because the first follower validates the path of the leader and the efforts of a leader. And the key, right, is basically to raise up lieutenants and to delegate it to people who are stirred with your vision and empower them. That means you don't want to just be there forever. Like, I think one of the interesting thing about my church is one of the fastest growing churches in the world, Kingdom City. And the pastors have very interesting mandate and mindset. So every time they are in a new location or a new church plant and all those things, the very first question they ask is, how can I make myself redundant in this place in the next 1 year? So basically it means that I'm in this position, but I want to make sure that I already have all my lieutenants covered so that I can move on to the next deployment or the next station almost.
Wow, that's a very good that's a very good one. Like, I've usually the questions people ask is like, oh, how can I do what I do just at 20% less, right? That's what I usually do. But saying redundant in 1 year itself, now that's a huge big goal itself to get the leaders coming in as well as taking over your place. Interesting you talk about the second man as well, because I think with a lot of the movements as well, it's not just one like what I say, it's not just one person itself. After a while, people displace the person itself. I mean, there are movements that are very strong enough that it's usually due to the leader, whether is it in terms of I mean, Donald Trump will consider probably a movement as well, in terms of Hitler as well. Still very idealistic that they still look at that same leader rather than looking like no one cares about the second chain in command and third chain in command. What would you say is the reason why people just care about the top one when it comes to this kind of movement? What would you say is the difference between these people who just idolizing the leader itself, and then with building an actual like I would say both are still movements, but one is more towards idolizing the leader, and then the other one is actually like a community moving forward the movement and the vision itself?
I think none of it is wrong. And I think it also depends on the strength of, I mean, if you're divisive enough, then I mean all movements require that leader on the top anyway. So regardless, I mean you can have a formless movement, but it doesn't really last very long. Usually there's a cause and there's a person.
Yeah.
Generally. I mean, I may have seen like ISIS and all those don't have so ISIS is a decentralized movement, which is very rare. But with Trump, with Hitler, I mean, they're so divisive that you either love them or hate them. And then that becomes the sole determinant whether you follow a movement or not.
Interesting. I'm glad that we actually talk about movements itself, because I want to tap in more into like how you've actually studied a lot of the different campaigns that you do. And I think your own movement itself is a very good example of creating a community that people runs by itself. Like, you don't really have to go in and like, hey guys, let's start sharing. It's more like everyone's just autopiloting. Like it becomes like second nature to them, which is very interesting, because I realize movements, people start to assume a new identity when they join a movement, right? The same thing when we when we convert religions, or whether is it we join a new religion itself, we tend to assume a new identity in a sense, I'll say transcendence of identity or evolution of identity itself. And I think one big thing of movements movement is actually creating the identity of people that people want to become, right? Then the question is really, when there are so many different people, right, coming together, so many people with different identities, right? How does one create a movement where everyone is able to relate to that same identity in that form of sense? Or is there not really a need to have one identity, but everyone's going in their own separate identities? Because I've seen movements that can't think of my top of my head. I can't remember what's the name of the movement itself. But there are movements where everyone has different interests different interests itself, they come together and it becomes quite a short-term movement rather than a long-term movement, because everyone has their different interests. They start diverging as they start growing, and then they all become different roles in other areas of life. But then there are people with different interests, but they all come in together with like a kind of like a monopolistic identity where we all kind of have the same identity, yet we are all individuals itself. Yeah, then the question is really like, do we really have to form identities in movement itself to make sure everyone comes together, or is that something, not exactly needed?
I think diversity is strength. So diversity is not division. Diversity basically means that you have people with different identities, different strengths, different weaknesses, but they're united by a shared purpose, shared goal, shared vision, shared values. So the key is really you need to everybody to be on the same page for these 3 or 4 things. Shared value, shared figurehead, maybe. So these 5 things. And they can be different and everywhere else, really. Like you have this persona or this personality, is fine. As long as you come in, this is our shared code of conduct, shared values, shared vision, shared purpose, shared cause, and identify with that, otherwise leave. But in a sense, it's a shared group identity, but individually, I don't think you're really compromising anything. And I realized that when you have a moment like I do, where people pay you because they not just resonate with your teachings, they resonate with you. Info publishing is actually about people resonating with the personality. So that's why I've not kowtowed to the market, as it were. Like I just do my own weird thing, and whoever likes my weird thing, stay and pay me. So that's.
No, but I totally agree with the point that people really just buy you, because the truth is, like, if you want to learn marketing, there's like a gazillion people learn marketing from. You only choose to buy into that person because you like that person itself. And so now that we're on this whole part of talking about trends movement itself, in the next 10 years, I think this is probably one of my favorite things that I like to ask people. Next 10 years of 10 years in social media itself, how would you see the development of the platforms moving, with like how TikTok is booming, Instagram trying to copy TikTok, now Clubhouse is kind of dying, Twitter decide to go and copy some audio rooms of Clubhouse. And with like the whole rapid development ever since like TikTok came in, then a few others came in like Clubhouse, a lot of audio rooms also coming out. But I mean, Clubhouse, as we know, is not exactly trending as it used to be. In fact, after like 1 or 2 weeks after like Gary V and Elon Musk came in, it kind of like dipped down and it's kind of dying in hype itself. So where will you see like next 10 years? How will you see the social media platforms being developed?
I think I will talk more from a general perspective, because all industries evolve the same way, almost. And that is, you usually have one player that is homogeneous. And then what happens is, then the industries become more and more niche from there. I mean, internet marketing is like that. You have the general internet marketing, your Corey Ruddle in those days, early days, and then suddenly now you have PPC, Facebook ads, social media. Like that wasn't the case even when I was, doing internet marketing 13 years ago. There was Twitter just came up. I mean, I came up with the first Twitter marketing course on the planet. So essentially, I was one of the original social media guys back in the day. But what's happening, and the reports is that social media is becoming more and more niche. These people are getting out from Facebook, they're getting out from Twitter and everything, and they are creating their own like social media niches or niche social media. So I don't have specific examples right now, but that's the trend that that Silicon Valley is looking at right now. So very niche. So people in almost the echo chambers are all congregating together in their respective echo chambers, facilitated by their respective social media.
Would you say like Reddit would be an example of that, because of like how everyone has their own like in the sort of way community, but also in the way like trends they talk about, or topics that they talk about, and they congregate all together. Like how the whole situation GameStop even happened in the first place.
Yeah, Reddit is a very good example. I mean, Reddit is a general platform, right? But what's happening is people are all moving off these big platforms and they're going into niche platforms. So I don't know why, other than maybe they don't resonate with Facebook values, or that all these big platforms, the problem with these big platforms is the control that they have. And I think everyone is sick of getting policed by Facebook pretty much. That's why, when that's the right wing, whatever that right wing social media came up, everybody was jumping onto it. I can't remember the name of that one. And then it got deplatformed by Amazon and it died, but I think it's resurrecting. I think Trump has his own network soon, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I heard. So yeah, so things are going to look very, very interesting, because Facebook is like really like, it's great, but like, I don't know, like
leaves
Mark
a lot
Zuck,
more to be desired.
yeah. Yeah, and even in Facebook groups, sometimes you're banned from your own groups. Have you seen that? Have you heard that? Like you're the actual moderator.
I got blacklisted from Facebook for 1 year. I couldn't even enter it for 1 whole year itself. Yeah, but I totally understand and agree with where you're coming from in terms of like how people are niching down and connecting to others in a deeper level. It's very interesting because I see it as like, in the first place, people went into social media to connect in the first place. And then like as the years and decades pass, then they realize that, oh wait, I'm not really getting a very deep connection. Like I'm getting like superficial connections in the point that people like my posts. Then I go like, oh yeah, they like my posts. And then after a while, I realize, hey, we don't really give a shit too much about whether people like my posts and things like that. And then we look and search for deeper connections in that form of sense. So to me, it kind of makes sense if people go into more niche communities or niche platforms itself where they can be truly heard. Because I feel also one big thing is about these platforms, especially with, I mean, let's be real, in terms of Facebook, Instagram, they don't really hear us, or they don't really care too much about what we actually do. Even if we report or we email them, it's not like they're gonna reply anything at all. So I think one big thing is probably the reason of not being heard by these big players, and like how the whole Gen Z trend is coming on, and like, everyone needs to be heard, everyone is special.
Yeah,
everyone, yeah, and then the whole trend of like Gen Z trying to push a lot of movements. It's very interesting because that's why I wanted to talk about movements, because I think that's what the whole of next generation is gonna be like. A lot of identity forming, a lot of identity assuming, or he, she, him, they, right? A lot of identities being formed.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. What would you say is like your take in terms of like, if we were to use, like, not being manipulative or things like that, but using identities as a way to really market to people and getting people on board with whatever brand that you have? What would you say is like the trend in the next 10 years itself?
I think the thing is, once something is an identity, then your actions are set. That means no decision making is involved for a specific action. For instance, if I'm Muslim, I don't eat pork. So my identity is Muslim. I ultimately don't eat pork. You put pork in front of me, it's not even a choice. You put alcohol in front of me, it's not even a choice. And if you actually transpose it into the brand world, I mean, you look at the world like the Mac heads. So you look at, the people who are in Apple, they will not go to Android. I mean, some are switching, but generally you don't. Or the people who ride the Harley Davidsons. The accountants in the normal day jobs, and then in the night jobs, they're like revving and all those things. So for me, it's when you talk about identity marketing, that's where it's going. And obviously with technology the way it is, with personalization of technology. So I'm supposed to talk to some Norwegian marketing personalization company. I might be working with them. And yeah, just interesting to see where it leads. I mean, virtual reality, where now you can congregate in in a virtual space, like what's the name, Ready Player One, I think. That sort of that movie. So it's just in a virtual realm. And now there's such thing. There's actually a virtual co-working app. I can't remember the name, where you're just little avatars and you're just in a
I think I've seen that somewhere. Yeah. I've seen that. I've seen that. It's quite cute. Yeah. I've seen that. That's really cool itself. Yeah, because it's very interesting. Like I'm looking at the whole like development of social media itself, especially what you talk about, like in terms of movements, in terms of trends itself. So it's very interesting to see how like there's always rapid progression, but the interesting thing you talk about is like niching, because I didn't really thought of it of niching. I just thought of like it as people wanting to be heard, people want to be in action, and people want to be part of it. But now you talk about niching, then it kind of makes sense, because then people will start to congregate in their own kind of cliques, right? Because I associate to this, I belong to this, I identify with this, and things like that. So it makes a lot of sense of the insight that you brought into it itself. And I think enough about trends and movements itself. And I think one thing that I saw referring this form itself before I hop onto this podcast itself, you mentioned that your biggest breakthrough was getting selected for the Sovereign Academy in Lithuania, together with your wife itself. I understand it's a camp of, I went to go search on it. I understand it's a camp of selected entrepreneurs who like mastermind together itself. I still don't really see exactly what it was very special about that, but why was it very special for you out of like all the achievements you have, like working on Clivey, winning awards in Clivey, working for Mind Valley and everything, but to you that was like your biggest breakthrough, right? What was that so special for you?
One, you can't pay money to get in, you get selected. So basically what's happened is Sovereign Academy is from Sovereign Man, which is a really famous financial newsletter from Simon Black. And what Simon Black did the last 10 years was like, I want to give back to the community, I want to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so what he did was he sponsored, so this camp is actually sponsored. You go there, everything is free.
Yeah, I saw.
And and you get to hang with Derek Sivers, you get to hang with Craig Ballantyne, you get to hang with, some big names, Bill Silva, who manages Linkin Park. So he managed like all these, big business, and they're all hanging out with you in the campsite for you to ask your advice. But to get in is incredibly hard because they get about 1,000 plus entries every year and 50 get selected. So it is astronomical
5%.
odds. Yeah. And they don't give you a criteria, mind you. They say, okay, do a YouTube video telling me why I should let you in. And real life doesn't give you rules and doesn't give you criteria. So I'm not going to give you criteria. You just figure it out.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So what do you talk about in that video itself that got you to be selected?
I actually just said, my wife likes me and I'm not an asshole, so I'll be a good addition to the camp. That's actually what I said. And I got in. So, so I think I got lucky because I heard I wasn't a unanimous choice. My wife was. So the crazy thing is my wife and I weren't joint applications. They were individual applications. So out of 1,000, you have, out of 50 is a 0.5% chance of you actually getting in, right? You have 2 from the same household that got into the same cohort. And for me, that was really special because either of us could have missed out. Like she could have missed out, I could have missed out, whatever it is, but we both got in, which means then I don't have the guilt of, going to Lithuania alone and leaving my wife behind or vice versa and whatnot. Like we both got in, and that's what makes it so special. And the other thing is he actually validated the journey because he said out of 1,000 entrepreneurs, you are remarkable because someone picks you. And for me, it's the highest quality network I've ever been to in any place because everyone was curated. Everyone was personally chosen. Because no one can pay to be there. Even in the mastermind, you pay $25,000 to be there. But this money can't even buy. They pick you based on how special they think you are. So that validates your identity. And then you go there and, it was great content, great speakers, amazing connections. And it's a camp setting, so it's a little bit more rough and tumble. It's not a hotel. We stay with bunk beds and everything above a sauna, but it was just fun. And yeah, I think it's unfortunate that they stopped doing it. So last year was the last year.
Yeah, I was saying like, why is there like no 2021?
Yeah, no 2021 because of COVID also, but they did it for 10 years, and because they said they go through thousands of entries every year, they got a bit tired. But now they have an alumni network. That is this super high quality alumni network that,
that's interesting. Now I understand why it's so special. Now I understand why it's so special to you. I was wondering like, okay, mastermind itself, I know it's selected. Now you talk about 1,000 plus. I was like, wow, okay, that's a very high application itself. So I think before I ask my last few questions itself, I think there'll be people who love to learn from you, learn more about you as well. And I thought I maybe join your movement of write your own damn check itself. Now, where can people actually find you?
I mean, just go to wyodc.com. There's a newsletter there. There's a weekly newsletter, and then there is the Knights of the Holy Grail training coming up, and that is all about, it's basically my 20 years worth of copywriting strategy in a 5-day free training program. Why I do that is because I believe in being generous first, and then there is an offer at the end generally, but it doesn't really make a difference whether you take that or not. But what happens is you get empowered, and then those who resonate with the values, like say the values, the cause, the figurehead, everything will join WYODC. So for me, it's just almost like an open invitation, and if not, fine. You do you type of thing, and I think you will give them the link later for that.
Yeah, I'll place the link in the socials below. You can just go and click down.
So it's called Knights of the Holy Grail. So we'll give you a landing page for that. Yeah.
Again, awesome, man. So just one of my last few questions itself is, where would you see yourself 10 years down the road? With like so many things that you're going on, doing so many different things. I think one question, this is pretty much like a more personal question because I don't think I asked that to everyone, but what would you say is like your vision for the next 10 years?
It's a very interesting question, and here's why. 2 weeks ago, someone asked me the same thing. And basically what he told me was, look, we can invest in your dreams. We can give you access to anyone and everyone. We can give you access to anyone, any place. We just want to fund your vision. So basically, it's a blank check pretty much. So basically, you have this vision. We will bring in the funding, bring in the people, bring in the access. So, if I want to move to the States, they will just go to the US and get me a visa. If they want to meet Mark Zuck or Bezos, they can make the arrangements. So basically, I got a carte blanche offer. So why I get the offer is really simple: likability, luck, and skill. So but the skill part needs to be higher if you're getting such an offer.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I think that's a disclaimer for people.
Even you're likable.
Disclaimer for people. They might be thinking, oh shit, where am I going to get one now? Someone please fund me my dream.
So basically, what are your dreams? And that's something I need to clarify, because I have big dreams, but I usually operate on a scarcity scale. I mean, it's not really a scarcity, it's a strategic scale, because strategy is, with the scarce resources I have, how do I reach my goal? Because we always talk about abundance mindset, but the real world is the real world. Like, you have, a finite amount of cash, a finite amount of time, a finite amount of human energy, yours and your team. They only have so much energy, you cannot squeeze more than that, right? So, but now they're saying, what if we remove all those constraints? What will your vision be? So that is something I am thinking about. I mean, it's always to do something with Africa. It's something to do with, I want to make my billions as well, because I hang out with a few billionaires. So my billionaire friends they're very chill. They just wear shorts. They just chill out, like
waiting for you to be a billionaire.
Billionaire is a function of time. So it's a function of time and the right opportunity, and in a sense, the right financial structures as well. So it's actually a different game. It's all about the P&L. They're going from the P&L to the asset sheet already. So for me, yeah, I think those are the things I want. It's very vague. It's a non-answer answer, because I'm still thinking. Because I need to come back to them and basically say, look, this is my plans. Tell me what resources you want to give me. But at least I know I reached that stage, like, of respect.
So, that's really freaking cool. To be honest, that's really freaking cool. I think that would be like, I think anyone listening to this or watching this will probably want this, want something like that. But once again, disclaimer, need a lot of skills. decades of experience and training again and again in order to get to where you are at. And so I think one of my last question itself is, what's your definition of living an impact in the world that you live in?
actually living impact is contingent on how big the purpose God has for your life. So if God wants to impact nations and you're impacting your neighborhood, you're actually cheating yourself of that purpose.
And so what would you say your impact would be then?
I think I will have a worldwide impact. And I think if you reverse engineer it, right, you say, okay, this is the excess I have. And I mean, I don't have the fruit to correspond with the excess because I also don't know what to do with the excess. I'm not excess, but the excess. Like, I know powerful people in Zimbabwe. Like I basically had tea with the High Court judge in Zimbabwe a few months ago. Like, we're just having tea. And she was asking, what do I want? Like, basically, everyone's asking me, what do I want? And it's almost like your impact lies with your stewardship, actually. So basically, it's the awareness of the potential and the existing resources you have, and how do you steward it for the greater good of the people. So for me, and it's just a matter of almost like doing a stock take on all these blessings in your life. And then, okay, God, how do I steward this? And I have access to hip hop superstars in the States. I was supposed to meet Dennis Rodman like last year
Wow.
in LA, like to discuss a cannabis project or something. So, I have that. But then what? Because it's not really to brag either. Like, it's nice to name drop someone on social media. That's not really so impact lies with stewarding the resources in a strategic way outwards.
Okay, interesting thing in terms of how you view impact and what God has in plan for you as well in terms of what's your purpose He has for you. So it's interesting to really hear about your thoughts of like the whole movement trends and I'll talk about the vision itself, which I think is for you is still a self-discovery moment. but it's really great to have you on the show itself. I think you answered some questions really, really brilliantly. I think I got quite a few gold mines itself and gems itself that I'll probably be thinking of as well, some questions that you ask for yourself. And I think for those of you who want to know more about Kenneth itself, you all can go and check the socials down below, can go and join his group, can join his free training as well if you want to, right? We have all the social links down below itself. And with that, I really thank you for being on this show itself, Kenneth. I think it's a huge honor for you to be here. One of the most insightful ones as well when it comes to building movements in terms of building communities and cultures itself. So with that, any last words that you want to say?
I think the one thing I want to say is, again, relating to, I mean, I don't do a lot of podcasts, right? So I'm quite private. I prefer to just mingle with my community, empower my group of people for success. I think you need a WYODC mindset in this world today, and that means you need to be able to write your own damn check, because you cannot rely on the government, you cannot rely on outside circumstances to change and to determine your financial destiny. Because Singapore is not bad. Singapore actually handles things quite well. Actually, if you look at Malaysia, where we hit 17,000 cases today for COVID. 17,000, that is insane. And if you have to rely on the government making a smart decision over your livelihoods, you're screwed. And a lot of people are screwed, and it's really not their fault. But if you're in a position to do something about it, then it's to basically say, okay, how do I humanize myself from all this stupidity by taking matters into my own hand? And no matter what the government says, no matter what taxes come in, no matter what stupid measures or how the politicians are caring or not caring for the people, me and my own are taken care of. And when me and my own are taken care of, I now have the capacity to change the world. Because you change the world out of overflow. You don't change the world out of intention. You change the world out of overflow. I have all these resources coming. I have more than enough resources coming in. I'm redeploying that resources into whatever nation transformation or orphanage project or whatever that I can do. So just WIODC. That's all I can say.
I think beautifully said. Like you wrap up this whole episode very well about if first you want to change the world, you got to change yourself. You got to make sure that you are self-sufficient so that you are able to make others self-sufficient and help others people in their own life as well. So I'm really, really thankful for you hopping on this podcast itself. And for once again, for those of you who really want to go and learn and really go and write your own damn check yourself, go and check down below in the links itself. And with that, that's the end of this podcast episode itself. Until the next one, keep leading and keep staying well, guys.